Welcome to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. The phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. As always, callers to the show will need to take a position, be able to defend it with an argument that is factual, not emotional. And if you can't make your point without insulting someone, you can't make your point on this show. Callers and guests on the show are going to be treated with complete respect. For my part, I will ask questions that matter and give people the opportunity to answer. My website is www.youdefendit.com. That's youdefendit.com. You can give me your comments on the show anytime. By Friday of each week, I will have the topics up for the next show. You can also visit my blog through the site. You can read my posts and leave your own. Okay, the guest lineup for tomorrow's talk shows. ABC's This Week will have Senate appointee and former Illinois Attorney General Roland Burris, Senators Dick Durbin and Mitch McConnell. Durbin is a Democrat from Illinois, McConnell Republican from Kentucky. CBS Face the Nation will have Vice President Dick Cheney. NBC's Meet the Press will have Senator Harry Reid. CNN's Late Edition will have Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat, and Governors John Corzine from New Jersey and Mark Sanford, South Carolina. Also former Governor Mitt Romney, Republican, Massachusetts. Fox News Sunday will have former President George H.W. Bush. All right, this week I want to talk about American foreign policy. There is a war going on right now in Israel, nothing new there. This is their second real offensive in 3 years, the last one not being nearly as successful as Israel is used. They're not used to having a kind of a draw that they fought to as they did 3 years ago. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I think it's important in light of what our foreign policy is perceived as worldwide to look at this conflict with Hamas and Israel right now. I think it points out the absurdity of our foreign policy all over the place in 10 different ways. And it's been a while since we talked about foreign policy on this show. But I think more than ever, we need to examine what our foreign policy, not just what it is, but what it should be based upon. I submit, as crass as this may sound, that our foreign policy should be based exclusively and ruthlessly on what is in the best interest of the United States of America, period. That's it. Nothing else. Not about making other people free, nothing. What is in the best interest of the United States of America should determine our foreign policy. It almost seems self-evident. Well, of course that is not what our foreign policy is at all. Our foreign policy was derailed during the Iraq War when we changed the rationale for that war midway through from finding weapons of mass destruction to bringing peace and democracy to everybody on earth. So as usual, I want to read a couple quick articles, actually excerpts from some articles. The first is from Wikipedia, and this is about Hamas and the Palestinian territories. And this is from Wikipedia. In January 2006, Hamas won a surprise victory in the Palestinian parliamentary elections, taking 76 of the 132 seats in the chamber, while the previous ruling Fatah party took 43. Many perceive the preceding Fatah government as corrupt and ineffective, and Hamas supporters see it as an armed resistance movement defending Palestinians from the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. This article is from Red Orbit, June 2005. Hezbollah claims win in Lebanon election. Beirut, Lebanon. Hezbollah and its Shiite Muslim allies have won all 23 seats in South Lebanon, Lebanese papers predicted Monday, as Israel expressed concern over the assumed victory of an armed group regarded as terrorists internationally. Okay. First point, this. If you bring democracy to regions of the world that hate us. You are going to find yourself with democratically elected governments that hate us. This should not have come as a surprise to anyone. We demanded elections. Our response to the Arab-Israeli conflict, and you'll remember that when we were talking about the Iraq War, back in 2003, many people were saying, do not think that you can go forward with this war and achieve anything unless and until you resolve the Arab-Israeli conflict. That's the problem in the Middle East. If you don't address it, if you don't try and bring an end to it, then nothing else matters over there. Because in the end, it'll all come back to that. And it has. We saw during the conflict between Israel and Lebanon 3 years ago, who did the Iraqi government side with? Not Israel. I mean, that's an amazing circumstance to find yourself in. You spend hundreds of billions of dollars in a war in Iraq, supposedly to bring them freedom, supposedly in a fight against terror. And what does their elected government do? What does Maliki do? He says he's not with the Israelis. He's with the people that we characterize as terrorists. He's with Hamas. You know, you just can't, again, you cannot expect a different Middle East by simply telling them they need to elect different people. You've got to get to the root of the problem over there, and everybody knows what it is. It's been the problem since 1949. What to do about the Arab-Israeli conflict. We haven't resolved it. So we find ourselves in a situation now where Israel is again at war with a neighbor. But now they're at war with a government that was democratically elected. And we pushed for that. That's how silly and ridiculous our foreign policy is. There's no coherence to it at all. We demanded elections and wound up with democratically elected governments that we immediately denounced and said we wouldn't work with. When Hamas and Hezbollah were elected, we immediately announced that they were terrorist organizations and we wouldn't work with them, after we pushed for a democratic framework by which they were elected. Our policy at that point was instantly and correctly branded a hypocritical joke. And it shouldn't have been our policy in the first place. It is not our job to bring democracy to every human being on earth. It's their job. It's the people's jobs in those countries. If they want it, they'll fight for it. We did. Once you start telling the rest of the world how it's going to be, then you have tethered your foreign policy to these ideals that you cannot possibly adhere to going forward. You can't do it. And once you're perceived as hypocritical, you have no credibility to get anything done. We'll be back after a break, but I want to talk about this, exactly what's going on right now in Gaza. And Gaza is where Hamas runs the show. Lebanon is where Hezbollah controls things. And both elected by the people, both of these groups, and a disaster for us. We'll be back. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. The phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. All right, we left off talking about the situation in the Middle East. And just a little background, to give a little background on what is going on right now. Israel is in the midst of a campaign where it is going through Gaza, possibly with ground troops shortly. Prior to now, it's been airplanes, it's been bombings by the Israeli military. They've been bombing now for, I guess, almost a week. And the area that they are going after is Gaza. And I'm going to read just a quick article from, or part of an article from Scripps News, and this really gives, this is a very succinct description of what happened and why we find ourselves at the situation, or in the situation we're in right now. This is from December 31st, 2008. Hamas rockets blew away Gaza opportunity is the headline for the article. Israelis withdrew from Gaza in August 2005. Authorities evacuated 21 Jewish settlements, dismantled 38 synagogues, and even evacuated 47 deceased Jews from Gaza's Gush Katif cemetery. Between Israelis' disengagement from Gaza through November 30th, 2008, Palestinian forces fired 3,123 rockets into southern Israel, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs calculates. Since Hamas seized control, Gazans have shot 1,685 rockets into Israel, 1,212 of them between January 1 and November 30th, 2008. Hamas fired 177 missiles at Israel even during a June 19th to December 19th, 2008 state of calm. Gazans also fired 2,299 mortar shells into Israel since 2005. Israelis traded land for peace. Instead, they got land for pieces of shrapnel. Since Israel withdrew, Gaza's rockets and mortars have pummeled southern Israel, killing 17, wounding 851, and terrorizing some 200,000 others. So in an effort, that's the end of the article, to move towards peace, in 2005, Israel, in a controversial decision within Israel, many Israelis were not happy about this, particularly the displaced Jewish settlers, they gave a piece of the land back that they had taken in prior wars. They gave Gaza back. They withdrew. They ended their occupation, and it was a goodwill gesture on the part of Israel. Well, what did Hamas do? Or what did the Palestinians do? They just saw that as an opportunity to fire rockets into Israel from a closer distance. They moved into Gaza and started killing Israeli civilians. And then, a year or so after that, we had the official election of Hamas as the governing body in Gaza. We had pushed for democratic elections. You may recall that George Bush at one point said, Arafat, this had more to do with Lebanon, but he has to go. You've got to elect new leaders. Well, they did. And those democratically elected leaders and that democratically elected government embarked upon a campaign of killing Israelis. So, Israel is now trying to eradicate these these sites from which rockets are launched in Israel, or in Gaza. And we, of course, are supporting Israel and characterizing the actions by Hamas as those of terrorists. But we're the ones who pushed for these people to be elected. Now, I'm not saying that we have an obligation to support whoever is elected. That's exactly my point. We should have known before this that pushing for elections in a part of the world that is openly hostile to us is going to open us up to a situation where a democratically elected government is hostile to us, and we will not recognize them. We will not deal with them. What will that have accomplished? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I have a call. Miriam, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, yes, I just want to quote someone. His name is Joseph Farah, and I have a feeling someone's going to kill him for writing this. Palestinian people do not exist. And he goes through the history of it, and it actually, Arafat created the Palestinian people, actually. It's something one should know about historically, that this is a fact. And as I say, it's, everyone thinks that it was all Palestinian and the people who were there were Palestinians. It's not a fact. The fact is that Palestinian people do not exist historically. So, and the name of the person who wrote it, and as I say, he may be Arab, so that I have a feeling someone will kill him. Joseph Farah, F-A-R-A-H. He has a whole article on this.
Are you referring to the Palestinians? Are you saying that were displaced in 1949 when Israel was recognized or created by the United Nations? That
they weren't. Well, you have to read the whole article to see that by Joseph Farah. But basically, everyone thinks that there was a Palestine and there were Palestinian people, but actually they weren't from that area. They created. You have to read the whole article. I'm just
okay.
Wanting to get at the truth. As I'm trying to read it, I have very poor eyesight, and it's a very small. Truth does not.
By saying that the
truth does not change. Truth is truth. If something is true 50 years ago, 40 years ago, it is still true today. Well, I can only read a little bit of it.
Well, I don't have the article in front of me, but what overall point is he making by saying that there were no Palestinians?
Well, Arafat created a whole country calling it Palestinian. And it's not so. I mean, Israelis were there, and it's the whole thing is a mess. But it's based on a lot of lies, and I don't think that one should base things on lies. There are a lot of, the media is horrendous right now. I'm sorry to say, they don't give you all the facts.
Okay.
But it's something to think about, and I thought I would introduce. I can't read the whole article here, but one.
Where could people find the article? Where are you reading it from?
Well, I Xeroxed it from a magazine, and I don't remember where it was from. I'm an old lady. I'm sorry to say. And
well, if you can get it to me, I'll put it on my website. And people can read it.
Now, how do I get it? How do I get it to you? That's the way you're saying.
Call the show right at 9 o'clock.
At 9 o'clock. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right, but I think one should be aware of the importance of facts, and there are many distortions throughout, and we're getting worse and worse with the media as far as I'm concerned. And my husband was a stickler for facts, and he taught me that I'm 86, and I'm not quite where I was. But this is something that did stick with me. I'll be gone soon, but I'd like to get the best country in the world back to what I knew to be the best country in the world, and that's America.
Well, I agree with you there. In fact, you know what? Why don't you call back between 8:30 and 8:35? Can you do that?
Okay.
And I'll get the information from you then, or get the information to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. And I will get that article and post it on my website. And then maybe we'll talk about it next week. I don't really know what it says at this point, So I'm not going to comment on it other than that. But I assume it has something to do with the fact that when Israel was created, so to speak, in 1949 by the UN, I assume that article takes the position that there were many groups there, and it wasn't just one group of Palestinians who were moved and then another group moved in. I'm assuming the article says something along the lines of there were many groups there and just some were moved out. But I don't know. I will put it up on my website as soon as I get it. Okay, Paul Harvey will be up next from 8:30 to 8:35. When we come back, I want to keep talking about where our foreign policy has left us right now with respect to some other countries in the Middle East and how we need to change it in order to be consistent. Our foreign policy right now is such a mess that we are open to charges of hypocrisy all over the place. And it's because we're trying to be too many things to too many people, and we need to simply focus on what's best for America and pursue it. Again, Paul Harvey's up next from 8:30 to 8:35, and I will be back right after him. You are listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. Phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. All right, I want to read an article from the Associated Press from January 2nd, 2009. With time running out on the Bush presidency, the administration seemed increasingly ready Friday to let the crisis in Gaza fall to President-elect Barack Obama. Although aides to President George W. Bush insisted they are still working hard to secure a durable and sustainable ceasefire, even as their influence wanes with less than 3 weeks in office, they all but ruled out a more direct approach and stood behind Israel, squarely blaming Hamas militants for the latest flare-up in Mideast violence. I don't really see this as Bush kicking this down the road to Obama. But I do think that it is indicative of what keeps happening, which is we try and hold ourselves out as an objective third party, as an arbiter, of somebody who's an appropriate mediator for the peace process. But whenever anything erupts over there, we take Israel's side. And I guess that points out to me more of the hypocrisy of this. You can't be a neutral third party if you take sides. We are not an objective arbiter of the Arab-Israeli issues. We shouldn't be, and we shouldn't claim that we are. Again, it is a nonsensical foreign policy that opens us up to charges of hypocrisy all the time. We have no business claiming that there is equal fault over there, because there isn't. The single military, if you could call it that, strategy of Hamas is to kill Israeli civilians. I don't know how you can possibly deal with that, how you can negotiate with that. Okay, I have Eleanor on the line from Endicott. Can you hear me?
That's right.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. I was listening to you this morning, and I've heard you in the previous broadcast, and I was just wondering what your opinion is. I think more or less you seem to think that we should be an isolationist nation, more or less. Is this my, or am I reading wrong into your discussions?
Well, I don't consider myself to be an isolationist. I don't believe that we should stand by when certain things occur. But I, on the other hand, I don't think it's our job to impose democracy around the world. I mean, it's one thing during the Cold War, during the Second World War, when you had Hitler on the march, eventually we were going to be drawn into that. And in fact, I think
that was my concern. What you would have thought about, going to war with Hitler and more or less helping the world, because that was a tragic, and Russia's probably going to be on the move soon too.
No, I think we should have been involved in World War II, and I think that we were going to be, and that's why Japan bombed us. They knew we were going to be. They wanted to take out our Navy before we officially joined that war. But there's a difference in my mind between stopping something that is on the move and, in the absence of that, just taking it upon yourself to impose upon other parts of the world what their government should look like. And look what has happened. We told the Palestinians, we told the certain countries in the Mideast, and only certain countries, by the way. I'll be getting to that in a minute. Our way of dealing with the Arab-Israeli conflict was to say to the Palestinians, get a new government. When you move to democracy, you're corrupt right now. When you move to democracy, we'll work with you. Well, they moved to democracy. They elected people we don't like, we don't work with them. What did that accomplish? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
But you have to agree that Hamas and Al-Qaeda and them are on the move to destroy not only Israelites, but also Christianity.
I agree with that. But I don't believe...
Well, what do you think we should do about it? This is what I'm trying to find out. What is your answer, and what do you think we should do? Just sit by, or what?
I think it depends on what part of the world you're talking about. I don't see a situation where the United States of America itself is threatened by Hamas. I think Israel should take care of Hamas. And I think we should support Israel in doing it. As far as Al-Qaeda is concerned, I think we got to kill them where we find them. They've made it clear that they intend to bring harm to us. They say they want to do it. They've already done it. But I think that our approach towards doing it has hampered our ability to do it. If you want to take out Al-Qaeda, you got to get them where they are. And we needed Pakistan's help. And we made it impossible for Pakistan to help us because of our belligerence in going forward with that policy. It should have been discreetly done. We should not have been out there with a bullhorn telling the world the way it was going to be, because the populations in these countries didn't like it. And you cannot have the support of the leaders of these nations when they don't have the support of their own people. It's that simple.
That's true.
You need to, if you want to take out Osama bin Laden, then you discreetly tell Musharraf at the time, we need to know where he is, we're going to kill him, and you can blame us. You can say you didn't know about it in advance and you're outraged. That way everybody's happy. We kill that guy. In the meantime, we haven't put Musharraf on the hot seat with his own people. And the more we go into these countries and inflame the populace there, which is what we have done, the less likely it is that we can get the help from their leaders, which we need. I mean, can you imagine if on September 11th I told you, 8 years from now, we are going to know where Osama bin Laden is. He's going to still be alive, and we're not going to be able to go get him. You would have never believed that.
No, that's a big mistake.
We should never have turned this into democracy in the Middle East. We should never have gone into Iraq. It had nothing to do with September 11th.
But do you think in this climate that we're in now in the United States that they really are going to go after the militants?
Who's going to go after the militants?
The United States.
You mean with Obama as president?
Yes. No. That has nothing to do with it. I don't know what Obama's going to do, and I can't prejudge him. But I'm just wondering, every time the United States tries to do something, the radicals, or what you call the liberal left, always seem to hamper them.
Well, I'm not aware of the left or anybody else objecting to us invading Afghanistan, which was a direct and appropriate response to September 11th. It had something to do with it. It had something to do with September 11th. And I'm not aware of anybody on the left, as you stated, objecting to us killing Al-Qaeda members in other parts of the world. There are certainly issues that have been raised about Guantanamo, that in my view, and like Abu Ghraib in Iraq, that hurts our efforts. It may sound tough and it may look good to Americans at home, but it damages our efforts worldwide to get the job done that we need to get done.
Why do you say that?
Because we lose our credibility.
How do we lose our credibility?
Why are we keeping these people in Guantanamo? We should just try them. Why not try them? Try these people. I mean, there are only 250 people left there. There were 600 there at one time. What happened to the other 350? They were nothing. They were zero people. They were people who had no business at Guantanamo whatsoever. We put them in cages like you would find at the dog shelter, and it ruined our moral authority worldwide. It ruined it.
You think it did it to the United States too? It degraded us in.
We don't need to do that. We have, and I don't know if you've heard the shows where I've talked about Guantanamo. We don't need Guantanamo. We don't need the exposure. We don't need the garbage that comes with that. We have the best federal prosecutors in the world. Bring these people to trial. If they have done something to the United States, then put them in prison, kill them if they have killed Americans, and be done with it. This notion that we are accomplishing anything by holding people in cages for years at a time without charging them, it is ruining our efforts worldwide. And we get nothing out of it.
That
nothing.
Makes sense.
As far as Al-Qaeda is concerned, I think we needed to have been smarter about it. I've never met anybody in this country since September 11th. I've never talked with anybody who said, we really shouldn't kill Osama bin Laden. That guy deserves to live. Let's give him another chance. Everybody wants him dead. Everybody wants him to pay. Everybody wants Al-Qaeda to be obliterated. But we worked ourselves into a situation right now where we know where they are. We know where they're training, and we can't go there. We know where Osama bin Laden is generally, and we can't go there because we don't have the support of the nations we need. And that's a blunder. We shouldn't be telling everybody that we represent peace and democracy. We're trying to fight a war. We are not going to bring peace and democracy to the Middle East. They don't want it. When they get it, they may want democracy, but they don't want peace. When they get democracy over there, we end up with democratically elected governments that are hostile to us, which is exactly what should have been predicted. If you got 90% of the population that hates the United States of America and you hold an election, you get a government that is hostile to America. What other way could it be? I got a couple other calls I want to try to get to, but I really do appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and then come back. I got two more callers on the line. I'm going to try and get there. But, this situation we find ourselves in right now where we are claiming to be supporting peace and democracy in the Middle East, it's just, you can't reconcile it with what needs to be done in order to advance our interests, and that's what we should be focusing on. We can't push elections and then not recognize the groups that were elected. We shouldn't have been pushing them in the first place. We'll be back. You're listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. Phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. Right now, I believe I have Joyce on the line. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I wanted to when you talk about the Hamas, they kept throwing rockets over to Israel since the 6-month ceasefire.
Right.
And so what is Israel supposed to do? Just sit there and let them keep throwing rockets over there without defending themselves?
No, they're supposed to kill those people. And that's what they're...
Well, they're trying to do that.
They're trying to do that. And the world is... I heard the news this morning. I heard the national news while I was waiting in this studio for my show to start. There are protests all over the world about Israel right now.
Yeah, I know, and I don't see why they don't get any sympathy. If the United States got rockets put on them, we'd defend ourselves.
Right, and
so
we
why
did.
Why shouldn't Israel?
I agree. My point is this: we shouldn't be our foreign policy.
Our foreign policy stinks.
It should be straightforward. It should be honest. We should stop trying to do everything for everybody. We should stop trying to tell the world that we're going to bring you democracy.
Exactly.
We don't need to be bringing anybody democracy. We need to be advancing our own interests. We got democracy in Hamas. We pushed for elections over there. They held them. Hamas came in. And they didn't this wasn't a 51-49 election. Hamas won overwhelmingly. And then Hezbollah won. These are terrorist organizations that were democratically elected. Now what?
Gives them the right to keep throwing rockets at Israel.
Right. I agree. Now we're in a position...
Why shouldn't Israel defend itself?
Well, let me just back you up here. I think you seem to be under the impression that I don't think Israel should be able to defend itself, and I think Israel should. I'm all for it. I think there isn't going to be peace in that part of the world until there is a winner.
This is going to be the beginning of the Third World War.
Well, we don't have any relationships with Arab countries over there that are strong enough to withstand.
We give them all money.
That's right. We give them all money. And we give some of them hundreds of billions of dollars a year in oil money. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But I agree with you that Israel has the absolute right to defend itself, and it's going to keep going. Thank you very much for calling in.
You're welcome.
I do not know if I will get to the last call. I will try to. I want to get one other thing in here before I do that. And this goes to my point that we shouldn't be claiming that we are over there supporting democracy and human rights and all this other stuff. We are not doing it. And we shouldn't be under these circumstances because it's not sustainable. Perfect example of this, Saudi Arabia. Here's a report from Amnesty International, October 14, 2008. The government of Saudi Arabia executes an average of more than 2 people a week. Almost half of them, a disproportionately high number in relation to the local population, according to a new Amnesty International report, are foreign nationals from poor and developing countries. There was a sharp increase in executions in 2007, with a total of at least 158 people put to death. Amnesty International monitored 39 executions in 2006. These deaths, by the way, these death penalties are carried out in public, and they are beheadings with a sword. This is from the National Review Online, March 18, 2005. William F. Buckley. In Saudi Arabia, amputation of the hand or foot is imposed for theft and burglary. Highway robbery is punished by cross amputation. That last means they chop off the right hand and the left foot. In Saudi Arabia, scores of teenage boys were flogged during the year 2002. A woman was sentenced to 65 lashes and 6 months imprisonment for committing adultery with her sister's husband, even though she had been raped. The man was sentenced to 4,700 lashes and 6 years imprisonment. At least 7 people, all foreign nationals, had their right hands amputated during this time. Why aren't we invading Saudi Arabia? What's the plan for that? Are we invading? Do we have a war plan for Saudi Arabia? What's our plan for bringing democracy and human rights to Saudi Arabia? The answer is none. Of course there isn't. Our stated foreign policy isn't a policy at all, because a policy, by definition, is what you do across the board. our foreign policy is ridiculous. We say what we need to say on any given day to justify what we did the day before. And that's the problem you have when you change your rationale. Invading Iraq was not the most serious mistake made over the last 8 years. No. By far. The misstep with the most durable ramifications for us was changing the rationale for that war from weapons of mass destruction to spreading democracy. We have no intention of spreading democracy. We hope that it takes hold in Iraq, and we only hope that because that will salvage the reason that we went there in the first place. That will justify us having gone there. We're not going anywhere else to bring democracy. You could write a list a page long of countries in need of democracy. We're not going to any of them. We should stop pitching our foreign policy to the world as our righteous crusade to bring them democracy. Not only is it something we can't do, it's something we don't even intend to do. And in the meantime, what do we get for it? We open ourselves up on a daily basis to charges of hypocrisy. Why are you torturing people? Why do you have Guantanamo? Why aren't you invading Saudi Arabia? Pakistan. Talk about Pakistan quickly here. This is from November 4th, 2007. NBC News Online. The U.S. has provided $11 billion to Pakistan since 2001, when Pakistan's president, General Pervez Musharraf, made a strategic shift to ally with the United States after the September 11th attacks. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said Sunday the U.S. will review its aid to Pakistan after the country's military ruler suspended the Constitution. After Musharraf imposed a state of emergency, the Pentagon said the declaration did not affect U.S. military support of Pakistan. So what do we have in Pakistan? Are we going to invade Pakistan to bring about democracy? Did we look at that option? When Musharraf was imposing martial law? Of course not. We couldn't. We needed him. And that's how foreign policy is supposed to work. Let me try briefly here to...
I've heard of that, but a lot of people don't know that you talk to about Israel. The history of Israel was that there was an empire of the Khazars thousands of years ago between the Black and the Caspian Sea, and they were rich people. They were in between the Christian and Muslim worlds, and in 740 AD they moved to where currently Israel is now, and they kicked all the people from that area down into Palestine. They're the poor people, and they just happened to have money, and they just converted to Judaism at that time, 740 AD, and they happen to have all this money. They can afford rockets and gunships and missiles and planes and bombs. And
are you talking about Israel right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now they can, and the people that, I mean, I'm not saying they're right, but they can only afford suicide bombings. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying they're right, but I ain't going to sympathize with Israel either. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Let them fight their own fight. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call.
And that's how the Rothschilds got started. Their red shield. That's what Rothschild means. Their red shield is a 6-pointed star.
Okay.
You know, and that.
I only got about 20 seconds left.
That just tells me that it's not politics that rules the world. It's religion.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for calling in.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. I am out of time. I am sure we will be talking about some of these same things next week. Until then, this is Rob Kilmer and this is You Defend It.